Welcome, Pokemon fans, to the Victory Road broadcast of the Latin American International Championships. My name is Cedric, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by my co-caster Hayden to cover grand finals for the Pokemon VGC. How you doing today, Hayden?
Really happy to be here casting with you once more. I think we have a couple of wonderful matches in store today. Just excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be, myself and Hayden, we're going to be casting the juniors and the seniors finals, the lower of the two age divisions. For those not in the know, I believe it's roughly 12 and under in the juniors division, and then roughly 12 to 15 for the senior division. And then above that will be the masters division. So yeah, we will be covering those lower age divisions, and we actually have our first juniors finalist on the screen right now, Magnus Kjær Andreasen.
Yeah, Magnus Carrot and Jason with a really interesting team. We only flashed it briefly, but a lot of really interesting tools here. There's like some Psychic Spam with Indeedee Expanding Force. There's a couple of just like standard tools that we see often in higher age divisions as well, with the Ursaluna Blood Moon and a nice Tailwind mode with the Talonflame. Facing against Magnus Carrot and Jason is his longtime rival, Isaac Ogi, who they've played a dozen times in tournament matches and are going to be rematching here on the grand finals for LAIC. We see an Annihilate, a Blood Moon Ursaluna, Goldengo, Murkrow, Rillaboom, and Mousehold, making up that famous Mousehold Annihilate combination on Isaac Ogi's side.
Yeah, speaking on Isaac, he is actually the younger brother of Ishmael Ogi, who is actually the 2025 Latin American International Championship winner in the juniors division. So forming a bit of a dynasty there, but yeah, getting into the match itself, we see a bit more offensive of a team coming out from Magnus's side compared to the more control-oriented, a little bit more setup-focused team on Isaac's side. So it's going to be interesting to see how those teams and compositions match up against each other.
Yeah, so there's a few really key components that we'll just highlight briefly for these interactions. Isaac Ogi has the option to normally lead with Mousehold Annihilate, but we're likely not going to be seeing that here. In fact, just going with the Mousehold and Ursaluna, because there's a few interesting counterpoints that Magnus would have had for that strategy. So instead, we're going to see a whole lot of flying types come out from Magnus Kjær Andreasen's side, the Talonflame with the Tailwind option, and the Dragonite with some really powerful skill shots, against a Assault Vest Ursaluna on Isaac's side, supported pretty well by that Mousehold.
Yeah, really bulky lead by Isaac versus Magnus's more offensive lead. You can sort of see that he might have potentially been trying to index against the Goldengo just because that handles his own psychic terrain team on his own side. And then we see the Dragonite and the Talonflame able to, number one, just set up. Looks like we're maybe having some technical difficulties on our end. We'll get back to the match shortly, but I think that was definitely a very telling lead based on what both of the players were expecting in this game one, with Magnus covering the Goldengo with both of his Pokemon having options to one-hit KO that Goldengo if there is no Follow Me present, and then Isaac having that Follow Me to protect the Goldengo or the Ursaluna so he could get some consistent damage out with Hyper Voices or Blood Moons.
Yeah, it really speaks to the preparation that both players have done headed into this match. Very flexible lead options that give a ton of different approaches that these players can bring into a lot of different potential leads. I think really speaking to these players both having made it to the finals of an awful lot of tournaments so far and really knowing how to prepare to go into a match.
Exactly. We didn't get the chance to jump into the players' accomplishments, but Isaac is actually a 3-time regional champion himself, Magnus being a 4-time regional champion with a top 8 at last year's North American International Championships. So very seasoned and accomplished players in the juniors division, with a lot of experience actually preparing for matches against each other. So that might inform their decision makings in team preview as well as the actual decisions for their individual moves a fair bit. Hayden, you mentioned that they've played a dozen matches. That's actually 7 wins in Isaac's favor with 5 in Magnus's favor. And actually, I was looking at the stats, and it looked like Isaac had never lost in the top cut of a tournament, whereas Magnus has always won in the Swiss portions of the tournament. So definitely, this appears to be somewhat of a demon for Isaac, or Isaac appears to be a bit of an issue for Magnus in these top cuts. Definitely going to be putting his all into preparation for this match to, buck the narrative in that respect.
Yeah, I think this is a good team for Magnus to be able to have a good shot at doing so. Magnus did win this matchup in Swiss for this tournament, and does have a lot of tools that I think make it very difficult for Isaac to go with some of the more telegraphed options on that side of the team. Isaac does have beat up Mousehold plus Rage Fist Annihilate, but the Mousehold doesn't have any counterplay to the Amoonguss on Magnus' side of the field. So there's a lot of work, like the reason we weren't seeing standard leads from Isaac Ogi is because a lot of the standard modes of that team just are very unsafe versus Magnus.
Exactly. The Mousehold traditionally just wants to go for a beat up into your own Annihilate to give it 4 stacks of the Rage Fist boost, making it a 250 base power move. But we did not see that. And we're actually going to see a bit more of the gameplay here as we see the Dragonite just went for a scale shot in the face of the Mousehold and Ursaluna. As we see a Super Fang coming out into the Dragonite, taking 50% of its HP and eliminating its multi-scale. However, the Hyper Voice follow-up does not KO, and we did see the scale shot confirmed in the Ursaluna, doing a little less than 50% HP. Didn't see if that was a 4 or 5 hit scale shot, but something for both of the players to know in the future turns is going to be pretty close on if scale shot can consistently 2 at KO this Ursaluna.
Yeah, I'm also being able to put in a lot of work with that friend guard though, bringing Ursaluna. Still taking like a really powerful attack quite well. The big downside is because this Ursaluna is a bit bulkier, it's not really in position to have KO'd that Dragonite, and so we're going to see Mousehold needing to kind of redirect a lot of these attacks. Really doesn't want to let that extra scale shot go out on the Ursaluna. Instead, we're going to see 4 or 5 hits on the scale shot. There's 3, there's 4. I don't think even with 5 that's going to be KO, so Mousehold comfortably redirecting attacks here. Dragonite's defense is going to fall a little more, not too impactful given how low it was. It's likely going to faint to a Hyper Voice this turn. As a Brave Bird goes out into that Mousehold, very crucially though, getting just a little bit more damage on that Talonflame as it's likely to also be knocked out with this Hyper Voice.
Yeah, we see the Hyper Voice coming out and taking a clean double knockout in exchange for the Mousehold and a bit of HP in those first 2 turns on Ursaluna's health. However, I believe on the first turn there was Tailwind set up, 2 more turns of speed advantage on Magnus's side, for which he wants to really take advantage of that with his Ursaluna Blood Moon with the Life Orb and Terra Normal available to it to maximize damage on its Blood Moons or Hyper Voices, or the Sneasler, which has the ability to just go for really potent close combats, Terra Dark Throat Chops into a potential Goldengo in the back, or Dire Claws into things like this Rillaboom.
Yeah, some really powerful attackers coming out on the field with a couple of turns of Tailwind. Magnus just confirming that by showing us the screen. One thing that Izak has going for him here is having access to that fake out from the Rillaboom. Definitely makes it a little bit harder for Magnus to immediately make use of that Tailwind, which is pretty important because Izak's Ursaluna doesn't have access to Protect since it's holding that Assault Vest item, so it's really relying on that fake out to keep it alive, or keep it conscious through this next turn.
Yeah, the fake out definitely critical in potentially stalling out a turn of Magnus's Tailwind to get the speed advantage potentially for Izak's Pokemon later in the battle. We see a defensive Terastallization of the Ursaluna to the Water type would have resisted or no longer been weak to a close combat, possibly could have survived that attack as a result, but we see the double protect coming out from Magnus, trying to scout out what Izak would go for, particularly that fake out, which we did see come out. Izak just really trying to stall out this Tailwind, and he is actually getting quite close to doing so. Only 1 turn remaining. The Blood Moon, of course, is revealed to be the attack that Izak locked into here, which means that that attack will not be available in the next immediate turn. I do want to point out that on Rillaboom, on Izak's side, is not the traditional Assault Vest. It is Miracle Seed, and it has the Protect move on it, so that you could potentially just go for a Protect on the Rillaboom, stall out this last turn of Tailwind, but unfortunately the Assault Vest is on the Ursaluna on Izak's side, so doesn't have that option himself.
Yeah, we're going to see this really impactful last turn of Tailwind. We're going to see an offensive Terastallization from Magnus, getting that normal type Terastallization, really powering up the Blood Moon and Hyper Voice. So impactful, given that the Rillaboom doesn't have access to Assault Vest, as you mentioned. It does, however, have access to a slightly more powerful Grassy Glide, so it's going to be able to do some good damage there, complemented by the Vacuum Wave from Ursaluna, which is almost a KO on the Ursaluna on Magnus' side. Dire Claw going to take Rillaboom really low, but not quite taking the KO, as Blood Moon is likely to finish off this Ursaluna here. So I believe that means Ursaluna on Magnus' side is very much in range of another Grassy Glide follow-up. So Izak is in a pretty strong spot, depending on whether that last Pokemon can deal well with the Sneasler.
Yeah, I like where Izak's head was at. The Vacuum Wave and the Grassy Glide, if the Ursaluna had retained its ground typing, would have been a double super effective combination that most likely would have taken a knockout there. Good both offensive and defensive Terastallization by Magnus to switch off that ground typing and just maximize the damage on the Blood Moon to actually get that attack off here. We do see the Goldengo is the last Pokemon in the field, and with Tailwind down, you now have the speed advantage on that Goldengo over the Ursaluna. This is a particular Sneasler that has the ability to go for Dire Claws, or Throat Chop into the Goldengo, so probably has a 2-hit KO there, but you do have to account for this Rillaboom in this endgame as well.
Ursaluna accounting for that Rillaboom by going for a Protect, wanting to make sure that it doesn't take any KOs and keep that Make It Rain spread for as long as possible. Is going to take a Grassy Glide into that Protect, so buying a little more time for the Sneasler, as Sneasler is going to just finish off the Rillaboom. Really crucial turn for Goldango here. It has an opportunity to go for a Nasty Plot or to just get a little bit of damage off onto the Sneasler, and it is going to be a Make It Rain attack. So really crucial information here for both players is to see how much damage this Life Orb Make It Rain does. Not going to be enough for a KO on Sneasler, super important to know going forwards, but it is enough that this Sneasler can likely KO both of the Pokemon on this next turn, which is going to be, I think, pretty impactful because I don't believe this Goldango is in range for a Throat Chop KO, so that might be game one towards Isaac here.
Yeah, typically you do need the Dark Terrestrialization Preserve to actually get the same type attack bonus and get the KO on the Goldango. Looks like with the crit or the Terra it might have KO'd, but we don't see that here. The Make It Rain does follow up, outspeeds the Ursaluna, and takes that double knockout to close out game one. I do really like Izak's game plan here. He just played extremely defensively with his two offensive pieces in the Ursaluna and the Goldango, and didn't leave a lot of room for ambiguity. Just continually hit his spread type attacks to slowly chip away in one or two hits to take the knockouts he needed to win the game, compared to Magnus, who was really more focused on the single target attacks that were a bit more susceptible to protects or any follow me's from the Mousehold. So really good game plan there. Up one game in a matchup that potentially could have been really difficult given all the offensive options that Magnus could have thrown at Izak.
Yeah, I think Izak had a really tough time coming up with, or had a very important challenge to be able to figure out what leads were actually going to be safe into this team. There were a lot of really dangerous pitfalls that Izak could have fallen into, but seems to have found a really strong game one plan. That was a really good way to leverage the Mousehold's ability to take a little bit of pressure off of that Ursaluna, and a really nice way to leverage the two priority attackers on Izak's side, getting so much damage off on that Ursaluna and making it no longer a threat as soon as Tailwind was gone. I do think Magnus has a few options for adjusting, though, so I'm interested to see if maybe we see maybe a less Tailwind-centric game plan, or trying to time the Tailwind a little later to have more turns available for the rest of the game. I think because Magnus was only really attacking in one turn with the Tailwind and the setup Ursaluna, that really limited the ability to get a lot of benefit out of that, and maybe there's a few other game plans that would allow Magnus to make a little more progress from that.
Yeah, I think those are excellent points about maybe staggering the Tailwind a bit to adjust for the defensive counterplay that Izak had in that first game. But we do see that defensive counterplay. We see the Amoonguss come out with the Ursaluna now led against Goldango and Murkrow. Potentially a really strong counter lead by Izak, getting the good as gold Goldango going to be immune to the Spore from the Amoonguss and threatening a Life Orb Make It Rain for a whole lot of damage into both the Pokemon on the field, although you would probably be exchanging a lot of damage in return from the Ursaluna Blood Moon.
I think this is a really crucial turn here, depending on how the Ursaluna is able to trade damage with the Goldango. If the Goldango doesn't Terrasilize and takes an Earth Power, that's an incredible benefit for Magnus. If it does Terrasilize to avoid that Ground-type weakness, and Magnus is able to catch that with a Blood Moon, that could be a huge amount of damage going into this game too. As we see Terrasilization coming out on Goldango, going to become Water-type. If that's a Blood Moon into the Goldango slot, that gives Magnus so much progress in this game. We're going to have to see how these move selections have played out, as we do see the Terrasilization from Ursaluna into that normal typing, setting up for some really powerful Blood Moons potentially.
Absolutely no super effective damage being threatened on the Ursaluna Blood Moon that turn, so absolutely only one reason to go for the Terrestrialization in the normal types. We see Tailwind guaranteeing the speed advantage for this Murkrow and Goldango for the next couple of turns, and the Pokemon in the back. We see Make It Rain come out, critically going to be a 2-hit KO on the Amoonguss, so if you get a nasty Flood Up in future turns, you can, or in future games, you can take that knockout in one. But we do see the Blood Moon does come out. Let's see what it targets it to. It's into the Goldango that is just freshly terrestrialized into a neutral typing. Earth Power wouldn't have KO'd, but the Blood Moon handily knocks out the Goldango, and this Amoonguss is now free to wreak terror on Izak's team.
Going to be able to start things off, I believe, with a Spore into this Murkrow.
Oh.
Indeed the move choice. So this Murkrow is going to be down and out for the count for 1 to 3 turns, and there's actually nothing left on Izak's team that doesn't have to worry about either the Spore, or in Rillaboom's case, it has to worry about a super effective Sludge Bomb. So Magnus, first turn could not have gone better with a brilliant call on that Terra Normal Blood Moon into the Terrestrializing Goldango.
Yeah, set himself up really well for a lot of damage on that first turn. However, did still take a lot of damage on his own Ursaluna. We see the benefit of that. Now the Ursaluna on Izak's side comes in, threatening a knockout on Magnus's Ursaluna with a Hyper Voice, but of course would be susceptible to a Spore if the Hyper Voice does not KO the Amoonguss. So could potentially read that, go for your own Blood Moon into the Amoonguss, given that you're not threatened by a KO by the Blood Moon that has been expended by Magnus's Ursaluna in the previous turn, but and that would effectively stall out a turn of Tailwind, or it could just go for the safe Hyper Voice to try and hedge your bets into the Ursaluna, but we do see a pop-off from Izak. Looks like he might have made the correct targeting here. We see the Murkrow take its first turn of guaranteed sleep. Let's see what the Ursaluna went for. Could be critical in deciding this game. Blood Moon comes out, going to knock out this Amoonguss in 2 hits. Only 1 Spore onto a relatively non-essential support piece in the Murkrow. It got its tailwind up to guarantee that the Ursaluna on Magnus' side would be a little bit threatened and forced into that defensive protect this turn. Brilliant use of pressure on Izak's side.
Yeah, really great way to make use of Tailwind. These players, you can see why they're rivals. They're trading such interesting predictions and so much excellent way to make the most use of their 2 Ursalunas. That does give Magnus a chance to bring in this Dragonite, which with multiscale intact is pretty comfortable this turn. Going to be able to potentially do quite a bit of damage, especially now that the Mousehold's Friend Guard isn't active. Maybe that Scale Shot can do a little bit more. But the Ursaluna, having used Protect, is still stuck on the field and very threatened. So we're going to see Magnus needing to pivot that one out this turn.
Yeah, extremely safe Hyper Voice available to the Ursaluna on Izak's side. And if the Murkrow wakes up, would have been threatening a hefty foul play into the attacking Dragonite, taking advantage of its high attack stat. We see the Hyper Voice come down, not a 2-hit KO actually into the Sneasler, could be critical in the next turn. You don't have that safe Hyper Voice plus foul play for a guaranteed double KO. As the Scale Shot starts to come out, deals 4 hits into the Ursaluna. It looks like without the Friend Guard, 5 hits, maybe 9 hits in total would probably take a KO. So I have to roll a little bit unlucky to miss that KO on the Ursaluna. But in this next turn, we do have the speed boosted on the Dragonite, potentially the fastest Pokemon in the field, even in Tailwind. We're just going to have to wait and see for that.
So looks like Magnus is considering just going for a little bit more damage. That Ursaluna still likely isn't threatening a KO on the Dragonite. It might be a bit close with the Blood Moon, but Sneasler is still pretty threatened on this last turn of Tailwind. So it's going to go ahead and go for a Protect, let Dragonite do the heavy lifting, as a Vacuum Wave fires off actually into that Sneasler, maybe just trying to do a little bit of chip damage or catch a switch in. But Murkrow is able to wake up and go for, again, an attack. If that Sneasler hadn't protected, that might have been a double up that was enough to KO, but an excellent protect from Magnus, as it's going to give a chance for the Scale Shot. If it's able to get the full 5 hits, it might be close for a potential knockoff on Ursaluna. That's something Magnus really needs going into this match. Is it? But it's just 4 hits, and I think even with 5, that might not have been a KO. So Magnus doing a good job making progress, but that progress has been a bit slow here. Going to take 1 more turn of Dragonite attacks to be able to stop that Ursaluna.
Yeah, maybe the Vacuum Wave coming out a bit indicative of the trading on the Ursaluna, maybe a bit more bulky rather than faster. Otherwise, you should have outsped both the Pokemon in the field if you were appropriately trained. So just went for the Vacuum Wave foul play to try and double up that Sneasler. Unfortunately, attacked into the wrong Pokemon. The Dragonite made itself available for a KO with foul play that turn. As we see another dosage of priority here come out. Vacuum Wave into the Sneasler does a bit of damage, and a Stomping Tantrum, 100% accurate, going to knock out the Ursaluna on Izak's side as the Murkrow is free to attack. It didn't go for the Tailwind here, which could really spell doom if the Dire Claw gets an activation here. We do see a paralysis come out in the Murkrow. Let's see whether it is able to attack this turn. It couldn't move. The paralysis, instant activation, small chance from the Dire Claw, and then the 25% chance from the paralysis immediately stopping the Murkrow from moving. Doesn't get either a Tailwind, which it could have before the Dire Claw moved, or a foul play off due to the paralysis that turn, as the Rillaboom comes in to take the felled Ursaluna's place.
I think Izak really needed that foul play off into the Sneasler. Does not have a ton of options for doing damage into this Pokemon, and that, I mean, I think even with the KO on the Sneasler, though, this Dragonite is just so well positioned, especially now with the Murkrow getting a little bit lower, not having consistent attacks. I'm not sure that this Rillaboom has enough to make it through the Dragonite. It really depends on how much damage Murkrow's able to do with foul play.
Yeah, to some extent, you might have actually seen the foul play into the Dragonite. With the -1 on the defense, you might have gotten a knockout there. We see a Protect on the Dragonite, and potential read from Izak seem to be popping off, but it is just a double Protect, so going to mitigate any offensive read that he made this turn. Fake Out did go into the Sneasler this turn, trying to stop it, and buy 1 additional turn for the Murkrow to act out of the paralysis, and it does go for the foul play, which did act into the Sneasler. 1 additional turn of healing for the Sneasler with the Grassy Train that Rillaboom activated might have actually put it out of range of the extremely powerful Grassy Seed Grassy Glide from the Rillaboom, and now buys another turn for the Sneasler to go for a Dire Claw and potentially knock out the Rillaboom. We saw in the previous game it's a little bit of a damage roll whether the Rillaboom is able to survive. So yeah, definitely the offense in Magnus's favor here if the Grassy Glide can't KO that Sneasler.
You see Rillaboom go for a protect, really doesn't want to play those odds on the Dire Claw going into that slot. And we are going to see the Scale Shot coming out from the Dragonite. It looks like that might be enough to KO the Murkrow, which is really important. As you mentioned, the reduced defense stat on the Dragonite means that a Foul Play could do a ton of damage. It doesn't KO with 4, but it gets the 5th hit, which absolutely is huge for Magnus. Not having to take a Foul Play from that Murkrow means that this Dragonite has, I think, all but locked up this game. It has a lot of defense drops, but it has a 4 times resist to grass, and is sitting next to a Sneasler that's very comfortably going to be able to take out this Rillaboom.
Yeah, it feels as if that paralysis into the Murkrow on the turn, it might have been foul playing the Dragonite. It was key to Magnus's victory here. Otherwise, you probably could have gone for a Tailwind and Woodhammer to close out the rest of the game against all the rest of the Pokemon. No longer an option against this 4 times resistance to the grass moves on Rillaboom by the Dragonite. And just with the ability to go for these really powerful scale shots to slowly chip away at the Rillaboom with no real option for even the defense drops to be answered with a really powerful Woodhammer to take a knockout, Magnus punches in the Game 2 victory after that Game 1 loss, and we're actually going to go to a Game 3 between these fierce rivals in the Latin American International Championship Finals.
This is really exciting. Often in the juniors division, it's rarer for really high stakes matches to go all 3 games. But here you can see that both players they know each other's play styles. They're very experienced in this game, even with how young they are. And they've done a lot of prep. It's really exciting to be able to see just how down to the wire this matchup is. If that game had gone a little different, we absolutely could have seen Isaac winning. If the first game had gone a little different, we absolutely could have seen Magnus taking game 1. So really excited to see how this third game plays out.
Yeah, just incredible reads across the board from Magnus in that match. That first turn knockout of the Goldango proved really critical. If the Goldango was able to get an additional Make It Rain off in that match, we probably do just see a 2-0 victory for Isaac, continuing to the Latin American Championship, or actually in this Game 3 due to Magnus's ability and willingness to actually make that read down a game in such a high profile and high stress set. As we see a return to the Goldango and Murkrow lead on Isaac's side, and Dragonite Talonflame back to the Game 1 plan for Magnus.
Yes, I think Magnus now confirming that Goldango is in fact going to be a lead, happy to switch back to the lead on his side, which is most designed for handling the Goldango. Doesn't want to have to get those Ursaluna calls right too consistently. So I think a nice pivot from Magnus. We're going to have to see what the plan is going into this Goldango, though. It's certainly not threatened by immediate KOs if it goes for that terrestrialization option on Isaac's side, which I believe we're seeing right now, that Goldango becoming... Oh, that's actually the Dragonite, though, going for a terrestrialization into the Steel type. Really doesn't want to take damage from that Make It Rain from the Goldango over on Isaac's side.
Yeah, now both Pokemon on Magnus's side going to be able to resist any potential Make It Rains from Isaac, as we see Tailwind being set up immediately by the Talonflame and matched in turn by the Murkrow on Isaac's side. So not going to be an advantage from that for either player for the next couple of turns until they can reset it, as Make It Rain does roughly 50% to the Talonflame, breaking its Gale Wings ability, and the multi-scale on the Dragonite also broken, but still not really the amount of damage that you would prefer on those Pokemon. Scale Shot critically hitting into the Goldango, which is going to do a heaping helping of damage and also allow the Dragonite to be the fastest Pokemon on the field with the boost to its speed. Critically, though, its defense stat rather has been dropped in exchange for that speed boost, meaning that a foul play could do a lot of damage and potentially even knock it out in the next turn with the multi-scale broken from that Make It Rain. So although you did not get a ton of damage off on the Make It Rains this turn, you did potentially set yourself up for a decent knockout next turn.
Yeah, being able to break the multi-scale is a huge deal on this Dragonite. Magnus has done a good job setting up nice speed order, but with the Goldango still having the steel typing, there's a bit of a mind game here on targeting. So we're just going to see that Dragonite going for safe damage into that Murkrow. Really doesn't want to have to take those foul plays. Just going to get some nice solid damage off. Going to be more than half of Murkrow's health. Really important because you don't want to let that Murkrow set up a second Tailwind. We're going to have to see what the Talonflame's targeting is. It has an opportunity to take out a KO on the Goldango, but it goes for the Brave Bird, expecting Goldango to turn it into that water typing. And that means Goldango's going to be free and clear to go for another attack here. Just another Make It Rain, but that damage is really adding up here. That Talonflame has almost been KO'd. And if this Murkrow is going for the foul play you mentioned into a -2 defense Dragonite, that is in fact enough for the KO. So Izak finally getting the damage out from that Murkrow that he wasn't able to get in the previous game. Really happy to see that Dragonite going down, I'm sure.
Yeah, one of the weakest Pokemon in the format. The not even fully evolved Murkrow able to take the knockout on one of the pillars of the format in the strong legend or pseudo-legendary Pokemon of the Dragonite with that foul play, using its own offense against it. We do have the Talonflame. If it does a lot of damage, the Goldengo, even with a Flare Blitz, probably won't cause the Talonflame to faint from the recoil of that move. However, the Sneasler should just be able to Dire Claw the opposing Murkrow and Flare Blitz into the Goldengo for a double knockout this turn. As we see, the Flare Blitz does come out onto the Goldengo. Critically, we'll see if the Talonflame does faint in return from the recoil. Going to be close, but should have the HP left to survive, and it is left comfortably with 14 there. As we see the Dire Claw come out and knock out the Murkrow. A double knockout for Magnus, down in the first game, but now on championship point with only 2 Pokemon remaining for Izak here.
Yeah, that's a really nice double KO for Magnus. Has a lot of really strong board position going in, but crucially, this Rillaboom gets to come out with fake out pressure on the board, which is really nice against this Talonflame that cannot protect. We're also going to see the tried and true Assault Vest Ursaluna hitting the field. And with Terrestrialization preserved from Izak's side, this Ursaluna has a relatively safe Terrestrialization into the Water type, so that it won't have to worry quite so much about the close combat from the Sneasler on Magnus's side.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Gale Wings broken, you can't switch out the Talonflame and avoid a Grassy Glide later in the game, so you're really just stuck on the field here. Sneasler goes for a Protect, doesn't want to get Fake Out doubled up with Fake Out Earth Power for a knockout. As we see, the Fake Out did fall into the Protect. We'll see what the Talonflame went for. It is going to be, oh, actually, we're seeing the Vacuum Wave does knock out the Talonflame. Critically, as we mentioned on the first turn of the battle and in subsequent turns, any damage that Talonflame takes when it's not at full HP, it no longer gets the priority boost to all of its flying type attacks from the Gale Wings ability. As a result, we're able to see the Vacuum Wave clean up that Talonflame before it can go for because it doesn't have priority Brave Bird to knock out the Rillaboom. Really critical in bringing the Pokemon count back to 2-2. It could be anyone's game here in Game 3 of the Juniors Finals.
Yeah, a really interesting mind game happening here because the Terrestrialization is burned on Magnus's side. Now that Grassy Glide Vacuum Wave combination that Izak threatened into the Ursaluna in Game 1 is, I believe, a guaranteed KO because both attacks will be super effective. But if Izak goes for the targeting into that Ursaluna and it protects, that gives Sneasler a lot of opportunity to go for a Dire Claw, which is a near KO on the Rillaboom, or a Close Combat, which is a ton of damage into that Ursaluna. So a lot of really important targeting questions as we have almost only single targeting attacks, barring the Hyper Voices from the Ursaluna. We are seeing Magnus lock in the Protect on that Ursaluna, really doesn't want to take damage on a key piece, and does catch the Grassy Glide going into that slot. Really important question, though, whether the Ursaluna targets into that slot as well. And it does. It goes for the Vacuum Wave. Magnus sees it coming. The double target into that Ursaluna. No damage coming out from Izak's side. And Sneasler going for a Dire Claw. Not a KO. But gets the sleep. That's so huge. That might be game-winning for Magnus.
Yeah, because the Rillaboom actually was able to take the Dire Claw comfortably, you could just go for another Vacuum Wave Grassy Glide this turn and use the Terrestrialization on your own Ursaluna to survive in a close combat, and then try and close the game out there after taking the knockout on the Ursaluna. Now, because the Rillaboom is asleep, you have the faster Ursaluna, you can just go for Dire Claw or close combat, most likely Dire Claw into the Rillaboom, and then go for a Blood Moon into the Ursaluna, or you could just double up the Assault Vest Ursaluna, given that it doesn't have the Protect option. That's probably the safest avenue to Magnus's victory here, but we're just going to have to wait and see. The Terrestrialization does come out. Izak trying to save himself from a super effective close combat that would knock him out outright, most likely. We see the Rillaboom take its first turn of sleep as close combat comes out. Let's see what the Magnus's Ursaluna goes for here. If it's a Blood Moon, surely going to knock out. Hyper Voice can be very close, but it is Hyper Voice. Oh my goodness, knocking out the Rillaboom in one hit. Due to its low HP, but we are going to see a counter attack from the Ursaluna. But with 2 Pokemon left on the field, it's going to be really difficult without the speed advantage to make this comeback, because we do see the Blood Moon is going to come out and knock out the Ursaluna in one. But with the extremely fast Sneasler, the remaining Pokemon in the field, and the low HP on the Ursaluna, this game is all but over for Magnus to close up.
All Magnus has to do is lock in one last attack against that Ursaluna, and that's going to be game. Getting that sleep from the Dire Claw, so huge, and now being able to close combat. Wrapping up an international championship for Magnus against his longtime rival. They've played so many games against each other and really given us such an incredible show. But Magnus managing to find a way out of a tough endgame situation and securing an incredible victory. Wow.
Absolutely. Just finally getting the better of Isaac in the top cut of a tournament, and it couldn't have come at a better time, becoming the Sao Paulo regional champion, denying Isaac actually the same honor that his brother won in the previous season. But both of these players are just some of the strongest players in the juniors division, I believe ranked 1 and 2 individually in championship points, as we see Magnus's family, I believe, on the board celebrating, their family members along long worked for and finally earned victory at the Latin American International Championship here.
Seeing the camaraderie between these two players congratulating each other, I'm really excited to see what their next rematch looks like. I think these players are going to be rivals for the entire rest of the season. They're the two best players in the juniors division, and you could absolutely imagine even just that game 3 going either way. These players really put in a ton of prep work, and it absolutely showed in this tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. Really came down to both a read and some favorable rolls on the Dire Claw getting the sleep on that Rillaboom, but absolutely was anyone's game. It was just swinging throughout the battle who was actually going to win, and came down truly to the wire there, with Magnus ultimately finishing first there. Yeah, I like that you highlighted the camaraderie between these two opponents. It's easy to forget just because of the quality of play that we're seeing from these young players, but the emotional maturity it takes to actually honor your opponent, give them the fist bump after the match and say good games, definitely a testament to the maturity of these players, and just a testament to how seriously they take the game as competitors. And we're definitely going to see them up against each other again in the future.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I feel like this level of play you could absolutely have seen in much higher age divisions. These players had really interesting insights into a lot of important predictions. They had good board management of a lot of pieces. I'm really excited that these two players are enjoying Pokemon so much that they're giving us over and over again all these incredible final showings, coming up with all of these interesting teams and game plans into each other. I'm really excited for these players to show up on streams in the future, maybe facing each other, maybe facing other players in the juniors division.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a division that doesn't the same shine as the Masters division, just because the Swiss portions aren't streamed. We typically only see the finals, but the juniors just definitely have always given us a treat in these juniors finals at international events. So another one in the books here. We are actually going to see Magnus become the Latin American International Champion, and really just such a deserved victory there. It felt like in that game 3, even though he was getting the terrestrialization calls incorrectly, where he would actually have gotten a little bit more damage if he had gone for another move, he had the foresight to actually position himself where that wouldn't be immediately game losing, even if he got those decisions incorrectly. But congratulations once again to both of the juniors finalists on their immense finishes here at the International Championship of Latin America. But we're actually going to move on to the older divisions, where we're going to see Matthew Henry of Australia square up against Charlie Kim from the USA in finals.
Yeah, and this is quite a matchup we have in store. I'm really excited to be able to feature these two players. Matthew Henry, notable for having had some really strong showings also in online tournaments with no age division restriction, coming out on top ahead of a lot of Masters division players, and really leveraging a team that he has a lot of experience with. Charlie Kim, though, coming off of a top 8 finish in a recent World Championships, I believe it was 2024. Both of these players have a ton of amazing regional finishes, and they're actually going to be showing us something pretty close to a mirror once we get over to those teams. It's going to be really exciting to see.
Yeah, going to be some slight deviations between the players' EV spreads and their actual terrestrialization types, but I do want to highlight, usually due to the lack of broadcasting of the younger age divisions, we don't know a lot of the players that they encountered in the bracket, but in this case, we actually have seen Matthew Henry overcome the world champion Kevin Hahn in the senior division in his top 8 match. So absolutely on a tear through this tournament. But Charlie Kim is definitely going to give him a run for his money in this near exact mirror. There are some deviations, which we'll go into in a bit. But yeah, definitely Charlie they've actually played in the Swiss rounds of the portion. I believe that Charlie came out on top in the round 6 before making it into the top cut. So definitely a matchup that both of these players have been thinking a lot about and how to approach it for this finals.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be able to showcase the teams in a little bit, but a lot of really interesting decisions from both of these players that I think are a testament to them really having thought through these mirrors as well. Um, Really interesting though. Matthew's been using, I think, the same team for quite a while in this tournament, so maybe has a little bit more familiarity to lean back on at when he's going through all of this extra prep work for a high stakes match with this team.
Yeah, absolutely. This team, something that Matthew was able to win a tournament with all age divisions on the online circuit, basically able to best multiple masters on the way to his title of that tournament. So definitely something he's used to playing and playing at an exceptionally high level. And yeah, Charlie has all six of the same Pokemon, some differences, but it's definitely a mirror that both of them have played a fair amount. But you have to imagine that Matthew, having played this throughout the season of Regulation H, definitely has a bit of a matchup advantage, most likely in terms of familiarity, actually.
Yeah, the other factor these players have to consider as they're going into this matchup is the stakes of this match. Both players have made an incredible accomplishment making it to the finals of an international tournament and will be able to have a scholarship, perhaps going towards university, to be able to this is just like a wonderful accomplishment for both of them to be able to showcase, but I'm sure both of them are gunning for that $5,000 prize and the prestige of being able to be an international champion. So very high stakes for both of these players as they jump into a match that I'm sure they spent a lot of time preparing for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the title is for of their brains, but the additional cash prizing that goes to a potential scholarship definitely extremely appreciated for them. We're actually going into the game now, or at least team preview of the game. So we're gonna have no long. We're no longer going to be pressing in on both the prizing and the stakes of the tournament. We're actually just going to get the game plan. Going to be an extremely exciting match between two fierce competitors at the top of their game, playing a near exact same team. We're actually not quite in the gameplay, but we're going to be looking at, I believe, both of their teams now.
Yeah, so jumping into these teams, you can see in the background, they are actually going to both be featuring this Kilowattrel plus Ursaluna strategy, which we just saw win in the Masters Division, Las Vegas Regionals. So some really interesting little technical differences that we'll be able to break down into once we see these team sheets. Now, first, we're going to just take a second to look at this matchup here. Yep, so we've got the standard Incineroar, Amoonguss, Ursaluna, Goldengo, Kilowattrel, Porygon 2, on both sides with almost exactly the same item choice, but one really key difference, which is that the Goldengo on Charlie's side is holding that Ogloff Berry, likely a slower, bulkier version relative to the Life Orb Goldengo, which is maybe a little bit faster and more offensive on Matthew's side of the field.
Yeah, both of the teams being so similar definitely gives us allows us to save our breath necessarily in talking about two highly distinct teams. They both have similar broad game plans. We have both the Porygon 2 Ursaluna composition, allowing the typically slower Ursaluna to function really well in the Trick Room, the extremely bulky Incineroar Amoonguss switching combination, the setup Nasty Plot Goldengo to try and sweep through teams with the combination of Incineroar and Amoonguss supporting them, and then the Kilowattrel as a bit of a mix-up Pokemon. Number one, an Incineroar deterrent with the competitive ability allowing the Kilowattrel to get to a +2 special attack stat if it faces down an Incineroar's Intimidate, and of course the Tailwind, very critical, allowing the Ursaluna to suddenly outspeed Pokemon that would normally outspeed it. You can get that speed advantage as a potential option there, and you can also set up the Goldengo with Tailwind after it's gotten a Nasty Plot up to be a really devastating, fast, and strong special attacking sweeper.
The other thing that these speed control options gives in this particular setup is a lot less ambiguity about what the speed order is going to be. These players have had a chance to play each other in Swiss already, and so they know maybe some of the speed orders of the two teams, but they might not know everything. There's still some possible speed ties on the Incineroars and Ursalunas in particular, and one side just being able to set up a Tailwind would remove that ambiguity and allow someone to make some stronger game plans around moving first and taking KOs pretty quickly. So we'll have to see if these players choose to feature things like the Kilowattrel, or if they focus more on the other pieces like the bulkier pivoting from the Amoonguss and the Incineroar, and just setting up their Goldengos properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the Goldengo setting up, we do see that's where the difference in the items between the two Goldengos actually plays a really critical role. Where the Life Orb Goldengo on Matthew's side, it can actually hit a lot harder before it's set up and much harder after. You're able to potentially take knockouts with Make It Rain into the Amoonguss. The Ursaluna, probably not the Porygon 2, but the rest, just able to do a whole lot of damage to after only one setup turn. The Goldengo on Charlie's side probably needs to get two Nasty Plots up to get 2+4 special attack to actually take those same 1-hit KOs, just because of the lack of the additional firepower from the Life Orb. In exchange, though, you get the healing of a Guavberry when you go below, I believe it is 25% HP. You're able to heal 1/3 of your HP back, and as a result of that, you're able to just get to a much healthier state of HP. You're not taking Life Orb chip every turn. And as a result, if you're trained bulky enough, you're able to survive a +2 Life Orb Shadow Ball from the opposing Goldango if you've already gone for your terrestrialization. So that's something that both the players have probably played towards in some of their sets, but they've done that strategy against each other is going to be a little bit tricky. But yeah, definitely just some one thing to be looking at, the major difference between those teams.
Yeah, absolutely. The really key factor that these Goldango have in terms of their own interaction, Charlie being able to maybe safely survive a powerful attack from the other Goldango and then KO back, is really important, but it also has a lot of ramifications for which supporting cast members each player chooses to bring. On Charlie's side, there's maybe more of a concern about a Goldango with a +2 special attack boost and a Life Orb starting to take KOs on pieces like the Amoonguss or the Ursaluna, whereas Matthew might have a little bit more freedom to make use of those two pieces, bringing them and not having them immediately threatened by KOs from the Goldango on Charlie's side. So we might actually see some differences in the choices of which Pokemon each player brings to the match, just from this one key difference in how the Goldangos are trained and their items.
Yeah, I like that you honed in on the Ursaluna because it is true. If the Ursaluna can just get knocked out in one hit from Charlie's side, then you really do need to be prioritizing speed control to make sure that it can outspeed and knock out the Goldango before it knocks out it. We actually do see the Porygon 2 and the Goldango and the Kilowattrel led by Charlie and Matthew respectively, so kind of indicating that maybe a bit bulkier of an approach from Charlie's side against the more Tailwind-oriented Kilowattrel lead on Matthew's side.
Yeah, these players deviating very dramatically from each other's strategies right away. One of them going for the fast and offensive angle, and the other going for a bulkier Trick Room mode. This Kilowattrel could have been really useful against a lot of the other options, and is still maybe really impactful because it makes the terrestrialization from Charlie's Goldango a little bit less safe. It is a Water Terra on Charlie's side, so being able to avoid that Shadow Ball weakness is going to be a little bit riskier. But we are going to see Matthew going ahead and swapping it out. Kilowattrel, not super comfortable against a Porygon 2 in particular, and just going to pivot into the nice and safe Incineroar. Almost always a safe switch in, and definitely in this case going to be a nice way to set up some better board position. Although we do see the Goldango pivoting out from Charlie's side, potentially into that Ursaluna, going to be able to get a Flame Orb boost at the end of this turn. Also has dodged the Intimidate and could be in a really good spot. Oh, wow! Catching the Shadow Ball on the switch in, no damage taken, Trick Room set up, and the Ursaluna is going to get burned. And it's not intimidated, and there's no way for Matthew to switch and intimidate. That turn, I don't think could possibly have gone better for Charlie. What a wonderful turn of events for that side.
Yeah, truly couldn't have gone any better because the Kilowattrel was the fastest Pokemon in the field, and switch order is determined by speed. The Kilowattrel switches into the Incineroar first, and then the Ursaluna comes in, so it's still at neutral attack, and at the end of the turn activates the Guts Flame Orb combination to give it a 1.5 boost to all of its attack moves, and Trick Room goes up with 2 ground types weak on the field. We see the Incineroar fearing that is going to be switching out, although a Facade in that slot probably going to get close to a knockout, would bring down this Kilowattrel to a Focus Sash. We do see the safe Facade come out. Going to be bringing it down to the Focus Sash. If we see a follow-up with a Terra Blast or an Ice Beam, that's a clean KO, and it is the Terra Blast knocking out the Kilowattrel in one hit. That's really critical, not only because it's a Pokemon down, so the Incineroar can cycle in a little bit less easily. You've also removed the competitive Pokemon on Matthew's side, so if you have your own Incineroar in the back, you can easily use it to lower the attack stat on the Incineroar on Matthew's side, or just sponge up the special attacking hits from the Goldango a little bit better.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty crucial factor if Charlie's last Pokemon is the Incineroar, which would definitely be a pretty strong choice here. If it isn't the Incineroar, though, Matthew is now getting close to being in position to have his own Ursaluna and potentially take advantage of the Trick Room. The big disadvantage is that it doesn't have that Guts active just yet. It does still have the option to go for enough damage to potentially finish off the Ursaluna on Charlie's side, having established some damage already. But we are seeing Matthew just beginning to dwindle a bit in terms of resources. A Pokemon down already with quite a few turns of Trick Room left, and potentially, if Matthew's Pokemon are a little bit faster, this could continue to snowball in Charlie's favor.
Yeah, I think this is one of the situations where knowing the speed tiers between the Ursalunas, which both of the players most likely do, having already played out a best-of-3 set in the Swiss portion of the tournament, really influences how unsafe or aggressive they can play with their Ursalunas here. We see the Goldango, we're seeing two Pokemon cycle out, neither the Ursaluna, I believe, the Porygon 2 switching out to the Incineroar to apply an Intimidate, and Matthew also liking that idea, switches in the Intimidate. Critically gets it on Charlie's Incineroar, while his Incineroar is still fresh, so to speak, but we are going to see the resource of Terrestrialization finally come out on one of these Pokemon. I believe we saw Matthew go for his own Terrestrialization, and it is to the Ghost, and both are actually Ghost Terra, so not entirely certain which one it is yet, but we're going to see that it is the Headlong Rush coming out from Charlie's Ursaluna, underspeeding in Trick Room and thus moving first due to the reversal of the speed conditions. From Trick Room, we see Facade answer back with a knockout into his own Ursaluna, and it's actually not because it has not, wasn't able to get the KO due to the Intimidate, it looks like. Oh, because the burn hadn't activated.
Rush. Yeah. Matthew going for a way to try to get some damage off, maybe when Charlie could have potentially expected to protect, but even with the defense drop, because of that Incineroar switch in, the Ursaluna is still safe on Charlie's side. It will feint to one more turn of Burn Tick or to a Fake Out from this Incineroar, but with the Terrestrialization option still available from Charlie, there's a potential to still get a little bit more damage off from this Ursaluna. It's already done so much damage and it has a chance to do even a little bit more, as we see Incineroar pivoting out once more, saving its Intimidate for a little bit later, and Porygon 2 finally getting that special attack boost as it pivots back in.
Yeah, Charlie might look silly to be going for a Terrestrialization just to allow your Ursaluna to go down to the burn on the following turn, but because the Incineroar came in this turn with Goldango in the back with no Terrestrialization available, Headlong Rush should always take a KO, or at least roughly 90% of the HP on the Incineroar slot, if it is trained to survive that, as long as you outspeed. And we do see the Ursaluna confirming it is faster 2 consecutive turns, and now we see the Incineroar go down, showing the value, dodging the Fake Out due to the Terra Ghost. You will go down this turn, but definitely a favorable trade in knocking out this Incineroar. Extremely decisive KO there, as we see Headlong Rush. Targeting the Porygon 2, it is able to survive due to the Intimidate earlier in the battle, and can potentially go for a Recover to survive the next hit. But again, will depend on the training of the Ursaluna on Matthew's side, whether the Porygon 2 on Charlie's is going to be able to outspeed that Ursaluna on subsequent turns of Trick Room.
Really crucially, because Matthew's down to just 2 Pokemon left, the Intimidate that Charlie got down earlier on that Ursaluna is going to stick for the entire rest of the game, and Charlie has the option to bring Incineroar back in at some point to get this Ursaluna down to -2 attack. So even though the Flame Orb is active, this Ursaluna is going to have its work cut out for it to be able to still be doing enough damage or taking KOs here. I think it might still be able to finish off that Porygon 2 if it's slow enough, but other than that, the long-term damage potential from Matthew's side is going to be a little bit tough to find here.
Yeah, we saw that the Ursaluna was slower on Charlie's side, and because these Ursalunas on the teams generally are faster than the Porygon 2s, Charlie might know that he's guaranteed to be slower with the Porygon 2, just something we as casters don't know, but the players most likely do. But yeah, this Incineroar looking really well primed with the Terrestrialization to the Ghost typing. Every remaining Pokemon on the field on Charlie's side, or on Matthew's side, is weak to that knockoff. Once Trick Room goes down, if you're the faster Incineroar, you can knock off that Ursaluna for a safe KO with the Headlong Rush drops. As we see the Porygon 2 switching out, didn't like its position, it appears. Oh, it's actually perhaps Trick Room had ended. I'm not sure if I missed that, but yeah, the Incineroar does knock out the Ursaluna here with the knockoff, and now it's just Goldango against the world, against the rest of Charlie's team.
Yeah, Goldango versus an Incineroar, already at -1 special attack now. We see how much damage that Goldango does, and that's actually the most damage Goldango will be able to do for the rest of this match. So that's going to be really tough. And that is, Trick Room did not end until this turn. So we now have confirmed, at least as casters, knowing that the Incineroar on Charlie's side is in fact slower than the Ursaluna on Matthew's side. So maybe an extra indicator for why Matthew was going for that Tailwind mode with a much faster Ursaluna, and Charlie was happy to play into that Trick Room with a lot of slow Pokemon coming to the game this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. A 3-0 victory for Charlie there, taking game 1 in this Latin American International Championships Senior Division Finals. Looking to mirror the result of their Swiss encounter, where Charlie was able to win that battle to progress to the top cut. Starting to try and calm his nerves. He's on the verge of a victory here, but he has to stay locked in because there was some critical mistakes that Matthew made in that battle. Charlie did get a little bit more mileage from the Ursaluna than he probably should have, given the mistake on Matthew's side to go for a Facade instead of the more powerful Headlong Rush before the Guts Flame Orb combination had activated on his Ursaluna. So definitely a decisive victory there, but has to account for his opponent adjusting to his mistakes and make sure that he's able to close out this next game.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because going for the headlong rush carries so much risk with it as well. Losing that defense boost in a situation where a lot of Matthew's switch options were already gone. Like, I think where things really were tough was Matthew, having lost that Kilowattrel so early, had just really limited options and really needed to be careful about managing the stat debuffs on the Ursaluna side. That facade we saw almost was enough to KO, but just with Charlie pivoting in the Incineroar, maybe even expecting that facade, managing to let that Ursaluna hang on, a lot of just really well managed resources for Charlie, forcing Matthew to take some really negative trades in order to be able to make progress. We are going to see the same lead from Charlie's side and the Kilowattrel coming out again from Matthew, but Matthew noticing, hey, whoever got their Ursaluna set up first won last time around. So this time around, maybe I should just start with my Ursaluna and start going for a lot of big damage right from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. You're threatening a potential Thunderbolt headlong rush, and regardless of terrestrialization, if the Goldango does not protect, that combo would take a knockout due to it to being a Terra Water. We're actually going to see the Goldango not liking the pressure it's undergoing this point. Goes for a switch out into the Ursaluna on Charlie's side, so maybe just seeing a mirror of the previous game, going for Trick Room, switch to the Ursaluna to activate the speed control as well as activate the Flame Orb on his side, as we see the Ghost Terrestrialization coming out from the Ursaluna on Matthew's side. Doesn't want to make himself susceptible to an Ice Beam, which would be super effective, or even more catastrophic would be a Terra fighting Terra Blast into that. No Terra on Charlie's side, as we see the Kilowattrel go for a defensive play in the face of the Porygon 2, as we see the Ursaluna moving first, confirming the speed order that the Ursaluna is, well, unless there is a Trick Room coming out from the Porygon 2, but in most likely it is going to be the Ursaluna faster than all the Pokemon on the field, which is now reversed. It should now be the slowest Pokemon on the field outside of the Kilowattrel, with the Trick Room reversing the speed order.
And the Flame Orb activation confirming that this is really, as we likely already knew, not a speed tie, just a slower Ursaluna from Charlie's side of the field. So that sets Charlie up to have definitely not as strong a position as last time, because Charlie's position last time was just incredible, but still a very, very strong position. 4 turns of moving first pretty consistently against most of the Pokemon. Going to force some switches from Matthew's side of the field. Nice for Matthew, though, to have an Ursaluna of his own sitting out here now. Going to be able to threaten a lot of damage in return. Even though it's moving second, it's not threatened by any KOs this time around. And Matthew still has the opportunity to start setting up some Intimidates. Going to be able to pivot and Incineroar in. It is going to feint, though, to a double up on what used to be the Kilowattrel. So that one Intimidate is the only Intimidate Matthew will be able to get this whole game. This is going to have to do a lot of damage in return to really make the most of this. But it is a KO on the Ursaluna on Charlie's side of the field from a headlong rush here.
Yeah, critically gets the KO on the Ursaluna, doesn't bite into, but critically does go for the headlong rush, not the facade. If Charlie had wanted to, he could have gone for the Terra Ghost there to try and dodge a facade, so Matthew wanted to cover that. Goes for the 100% or neutral damage with the headlong rush, which would have knocked out the Incineroar potentially, the Goldango, and taken the final KO on the Ursaluna. However, the exchange for that is that you do lower your defense stat, making you potentially susceptible to a knockoff KO this turn due to going for the Ghost Terra. Well, Ice Beam not going to do the same, but yeah, to cover for that, Matthew brings in the Kilowattrel, trying to punish that Incineroar coming in, and does net the Defiance, or the competitive, +2 special attack boost as a result of that.
Yeah, I really like this strategy. We saw before that Charlie is able to use this Incineroar to pressure Ursaluna so much, especially after it's gone for the Terrestrialization. But this Ursaluna is now giving the opportunity for Kilowattrel to be able to get off a big attack, as I believe that's a knockoff going into the Ursaluna, so Kilowattrel free and clear to use a +2 special attack, but that is an Ice Beam going down to activate Kilowattrel's Focus Sash. If this Kilowattrel freezes, that could be game over for Matthew, but if it doesn't, that's a really powerful Thunderbolt coming out. Going to be able to get Porygon 2 down really low, so some nice damage coming out from Matthew's side of the field at least.
Yeah, I quite like splitting the damage up there. Even though you had a KO, if you doubled up into either of the slots, you now have the Kilowattrel in range for a KO from any attack for the rest of the game. And there is a potential that a knockoff just KOs the Ursaluna at -1 due to its Ghost typing being on the field, due to the -1 from the Headlong Rush earlier in the game. So although got the better of the turn in that he didn't lose a Pokemon there and got a lot of damage on Matthew's side, the Ursaluna is still in critical danger here from a knockout from the knockoff. Going to be hard to play defensively to get around that here on Matthew's side.
Yeah, Charlie steadily improving board position here, and now is in a situation where there's no valid switch into this knockoff. Anything that comes in is going to have to take a super effective hit. So it's going to be Goldango setting itself up to be hit by potentially a knockoff, losing its life orb for the rest of the game. Kilowattrel nearly forced to go for a protect here, trying to buy some more time in this Trick Room. We are going to see that knockoff going out. Goldango now pretty low. It does survive, but definitely not nearly as valid of an option. Ice Beam is not going to get the KO, so Goldango very crucially buying a little bit more time. That's going to give Matthew a lot more options going forward in this final turn of Trick Room, with a near full health Ursaluna in the back, and a Goldango that will be faster after this turn and has Protect available.
Yeah, you can see what Charlie was going for there. If you take the knockout, there's a chance you can maybe on the last turn of Trick Room go for a recover so that your Porygon 2 can set up one final Trick Room to avoid the speed order from getting out of control there. But however, now with two Pokemon that can go for a... Well, actually, I think the Kilowattrel does have to go for a double protect this turn, unless I missed an attack in the previous turn. But yeah, the Goldango just trying to stall at the last turn, goes for attack. No protect from the Kilowattrel, goes for an attack. Knockoff coming out, but critically, you might not actually need the Tailwind here due to the presence of the Ursaluna revealing in the previous game that it should outspeed all the Pokemon on the field currently. And very importantly, we do not see a recovery from the Porygon 2, which means that it might be susceptible to damage. I mean, it's certainly susceptible to a KO from the Make It Rain on the subsequent turn. Definitely a strong offensive position for Matthew that he's found here. And even with the knockoff being knocked off, the Life Orb being knocked off on the Goldango means that you don't knock yourself out to a Make It Rain this turn. So yeah, really was able to navigate out of this Trick Room expertly.
Yeah, that was a really important call, not going for the attack with the Goldango last turn, even though the Porygon 2 could have recovered, and now sets this Goldango up to be able to get the KO on the Porygon 2 this turn. And now, because the Ursaluna is faster on Matthew's side of the field, now that Trick Room is gone, Matthew's able to tell a very different story from last game with the Ursaluna taking a KO on the Incineroar instead of the Incineroar doing a bunch of damage to that Ursaluna. And that brings Charlie down to just his very last Pokemon against two Pokemon, both of which are threatening quite a lot of damage.
Yeah, we're going to see the Goldango come out on Charlie's side. However, we're going to see the speed interactions, at least from the Goldangos here, most likely. That would be critical for the rest of the battle and maybe give us a better idea of why these players are going for the decisions and the game plans that they're going for. But it's going to be very difficult for the Goldango to actually make a comeback here. You should be able to live the Shadow Ball fairly easily from the Goldango on Matthew's side without the Life Orb. However, you'll probably need to knock out the Ursaluna in return with your own Make It Rain. We do see a Terrestrialization from Charlie going for the Terra Water, trying to remove the weakness to the ground type as well as the ghost type Shadow Ball on the board. Let's see which oh my goodness, it is actually the Charlie Goldango that is faster, knocking out the Goldango on Matthew's side before it's able to move. Wow, that's incredible. And we do see the Goldango on Matthew's side did have a fair amount of bulk on it, maybe informing why it is that slow. As we see Headlong Rush come out, and it is just going to take the knockout on the Goldango very critically. These Goldangos with the Guava Berries are traditionally trained very bulkily, but yeah, actually able to survive that attack. If it had not, the -1 special defense on the Ursaluna and the ghost typing might have allowed the bulky Goldango to still get a KO after a couple of turns of burn, stall that with Protect, and close the set and actually win the match for Charlie.
We see Matthew just taking a breath of relief. That was a really tight finish for that game because Charlie had preserved that terrestrialization. Goldango absolutely could have survived that Headlong Rush, maybe with some different training or even a different damage roll. And if it had survived, that would have been the whole set over. Charlie would have been able to just finish things off with Make It Rain. Really crucial information, though. Not something that I believe we were expecting as cast was going into this match. The Goldango with the more defensive item actually seems to be either faster or speed tying with the Goldango on Matthew's side of the field. That really gives Charlie a lot more options if Matthew tries to play to this stall out Trick Room plan like he did in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Traditionally, you'll see the Guava Berry Goldango trained especially bulkily so that you can survive a +2 Shadow Ball from a Life Orb Goldango if you go for the Terrestrialization. This allows you to answer back with your own +2 Shadow Ball if you've traded those nasty plots on the first turn and get the favorable end of that trade with a knockout while still having your +2 Goldango to potentially sweep the rest of your opponent's team. Based on the speed order of the Goldangos, that might not be as defensively trained of a Goldango as we expected, which is why these trainers might be going for their Ursalunas as more important parts of the game plan of dealing damage. As we see a switch up on Matthew's side to Incineroar and Porygon 2. Critically, the first time Incineroar has been led in this set, and no Kilowattrel there to receive the competitive boost. As the Porygon 2's trade, I believe, the attack download boost in the face of the Goldango and the Incineroar.
Yeah, both players being really careful to pick leads in these matchups that make sure that the Porygon 2 can't snowball off of a special attack boost. I think that's really important. I also really like this adjustment from Matthew, seeing that the Goldengo on Charlie's side is so fast and seeing how little mileage the Kilowattrel got, even when it was able to get the competitive boost active. Matthew is going to play a more Porygon 2-centric game here. We are going to see the Porygon 2 on Charlie's side just pivot out immediately. Doesn't necessarily need to set Trick Room if that's something Matthew's planning to do already. And we are going to see the Goldengo go for a nasty plot, trying to set up just immediately while Incineroar comes in to give some fake out pressure later. That Goldengo is able to set up a nasty plot pretty much for free as the Incineroar just goes for a U-turn into the other Incineroar. Does give the option for this Ursaluna to come onto the field, activate its Flame Orb, safe from any Intimidate. And if this is a Trick Room from Porygon 2, there's a lot of power coming out from Matthew's side of the field. Does have to contend with the Incineroar on Charlie's side having Fake Out Pressure active and being slower, so if the Ursaluna tries to Terra Ghost around the Fake Out, it can still take a bunch of damage from the knockoff. But I think a pretty solid positioning from Matthew, being able to immediately threaten this Goldengo. Sure, it's gotten set up, but we've seen that a Headlong Rush can KO it even with a Terrestrialization. So Matthew's got a ton of offensive pressure if he can manage the complications introduced by the Incineroar.
No fake out comes out, no terrestrialization from Matthew, definitely getting the better of this turn. We see Ice Beam go into the Incineroar, doing a little bit of damage. Oh, and not even knocking off into the Ursaluna, maybe protecting a Protect. Could have gotten a knockoff, wouldn't have, definitely not have taken a knockout, but would have done some good damage there. But Charlie just trying to get a bit of a mid-ground play there. U-turns out into his own Ursaluna, which will activate the Flame Orb if it survives this turn, I believe. And then we see Headlong Rush following up and knocking out the setup Goldengo in one, just seeing the value of that Incineroar, or the Ursaluna coming in before the Incineroar and not getting intimidated, now has the safe KO with Headlong Rush, which we confirmed is a 1-hit KO from the previous game, regardless of terrestrialization. And now Matthew, with his Ursaluna set up in Trick Room, up tied in the game set, but up a Pokemon, is now really primed in this Trick Room, especially his Porygon 2 to start dealing a lot of damage to the remaining Pokemon. If you go for the Terra Fighting, you'll actually have super effective on every Pokemon on Charlie's side of the field, unless they go for a terrestrialization.
Yeah, some really nice play from Matthew. I think that's exactly what he needed to get out of the Trick Room, was making sure that Charlie's Goldengo couldn't be too much of a threat. But there is an interesting position here. Porygon 2 not getting the special attack boost still, so Matthew's safe from that particular threat. But with the option to pivot in Incineroar for a little bit more Intimidate, with the slower Ursaluna on Charlie's side, this Trick Room is steadily no longer working in Matthew's favor. It did exactly what it needed to, but Matthew now may need to stall out his own Trick Room a little bit to be able to get back to a fully favorable board state.
Yeah, exactly. Was able to take out Goldengo, which is the main Pokemon that Ursaluna is underspeeding on Matthew's side. But now, as you've mentioned, the Trick Room working more in Charlie's favor. As a result, trying to pivot out of that Trick Room, gets in the Incineroar, doesn't like the -1 special defense and defense. Ursaluna on the field tries to limit the damage of Charlie's Incineroar with the, rather his Ursaluna, by intimidating it with his Intimidate Incineroar. We see a Terra Ghost coming out from Charlie, doesn't want to be susceptible to a Terra Fighting attack from the Porygon 2, or even just an Ice Beam, becomes neutral to the latter and immune to the first. And Facade goes out into the Porygon 2, critically does not hit the Incineroar on switch in with the Headlong Rush, which would have been a knockout, as we saw in the previous set. Porygon 2 goes for a Terra Blast into Matthew's. Looks like it wouldn't be a 2-hit KO anyways, or at least it would have been close. But we do see that Matthew's Porygon 2 is the slower between him and Charlie's.
So one thing that is working in Matthew's favor then, being able to force an Ursaluna target to prevent the Porygon 2 just being able to recover back up. Although, as you mentioned, the Terra Blast, maybe not even a 2-hit KO. Really important for Charlie to be able to get that Terra Ghost off, though. It prevents the fake out pressure on this turn, assuming that the Incineroar on Matthew's side is maybe a little bit faster. There's also not the option to just go for a knockoff here. And very crucially, prevented the options that Matthew was threatening with a Terra Fighting Terra Blast. So we are just going to see a fake out going out into the Porygon 2. Headlong Rush going to be able to get a KO on the Incineroar on Matthew's side, but that does leave Porygon 2 free if it wants to do a little bit of damage into the Ursaluna, or more likely, it could recover back up to some pretty comfortable health here, as we're getting pretty late in Trick Room. But it is just going to be the Ice Beam going out into that Ursaluna. Matthew really prioritizing getting as much damage as possible off into this Ursaluna. It's really the main offensive threat left from Charlie's side, so one more Ice Beam and maybe a few turns of burn could really finish things off for Charlie's offensive prospects in this game.
Yeah, interesting decision to go for the headlong rush on the last turn of one of the more effective last turns of Trick Room. Could have gone for an Earthquake to KO the Porygon 2 and deal a lot of damage to the Incineroar. A little bit of damage into yourself, but you can readily recover that off. You might have some indication that he didn't want to, he really likes the Porygon 2 being slower than the Ursaluna here. He relatively safely has a knockout with Headlong Rush, or is at least threatening it as he switches out the Ursaluna, maybe trying to levy that threat to a better advantage, as we see the Ursaluna with the Ghost type, or actually no Ghost type, hasn't burned the Terastallization on Matthew's side here yet, but we do see that Incineroar enter the field as that Terastallization is finally used. We're going to see that's going to be the Ursaluna going to the Ghost type, will be susceptible to knockoffs in future turns, but we did see in the earlier games that the Incineroar is slower than the Ursaluna on Matthew's side. So yeah, what happens this turn could be critical. We see Terra Blast come out into the Porygon 2 on Charlie's side, not doing a lot of damage. Terra Blast exchanged. Going to be close. It's not a knockout on the Porygon 2, though. That Pokemon is stranded on the field, potentially going to get knocked out next turn. Oh my goodness, a critical hit. Oh, Porygon 2 is going to survive that facade easily after the Intimidate being applied by the Incineroar. Did not catch that with a Headlong Rush, but instead went into the Porygon 2. Yeah, I would have had another turn to go for an Earthquake or just take the knockout in the subsequent turn, but that knockout is so key. The Porygon 2 on Charlie's team, the only Pokemon that can set up Trick Room, gain the speed advantage for the Ursaluna on his own side and also recover damage. This Ursaluna on Matthew's side is well primed to sweep this game after that critical hit.
Yeah, Charlie stranded with just two Pokemon that don't have any speed control. Ursaluna is going to be able to get the Headlong Rush KO on Incineroar, and now it's just one Ursaluna versus the whole world for the rest of Charlie's Game 3. Porygon 2, I believe, is just going to be going down this turn. We're going to have to see what the speed order is. It does actually get a quick recover off before the Ursaluna is able to attack, given that Trick Room is up now. But the Headlong Rush is going to finish that off. Critically, though, Ursaluna needing to commit Headlong Rush there means that it's now at reduced defenses and 30% health going into the rest of the game. I think that's going to be Matthew Henry sealing up this victory here.
Yeah, went down one game in the mirror. Usually just a really devastating issue in a set like this where you just have all the same options. Now you have to win 2 additional games relative to your opponent only needing 1 in a set where you have all the same options. But yeah, the small differences between their teams allowing this Ursaluna to go down on Charlie's side. We see the Goldango making it rain for one final time, converting to the victory for Matthew Henry, a player who's been on a lot of people's eyes in the Masters Division and the Seniors Division, finally able to claim this Latin American title, his first international title. Just an incredible finish for him. Gotta feel amazing.
I am so impressed by Matthew in this set. That was such a really intense set to be going into. Even just, I didn't know that he was going to win game 2 until the final credits rolled. Like, Goldango could have absolutely survived that attack, and then Matthew really completely overhauled his strategy because he needed to adapt a ton based on the speed orders here. Beat someone who beat him in Swiss. We were tossing out a word a little bit in chat before jumping into casting this, and some people were saying maybe Prodigy is an apt descriptor of Matthew, and I think we can see why now. That was some really impressive play.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my friends was actually, he played Matthew on ladder by chance. He was like, you know what, this guy's really good. I could use some advice from him. And he messaged him and he was like, yeah, I'm like 14. So yeah, we've just been calling him Prodigy since then. But yeah, really proving why he's earned that title along with the international title here. I do want to point out that in game 3, it was just such a masterful use of speed control where, you know, Ursaluna actually outsped 3 of the Pokemon on Charlie's team. However, just using the Trick Room to leverage the Ursaluna against the one Pokemon that it was slower than, and then just slowly using his defensive resources to delay the pace of the game for his own Trick Room to expire so that his now faster Ursaluna could clean up the game, and that's exactly what happened. These more complex game plans are a lot more difficult for even Masters Division players to pull off or even theorize doing, and to do it in game 3 of an international with everything on the line, just a testament to the absolute confidence and skill that Matthew has.
Yeah, I can't imagine a more intricate game plan for like any age division in such a high stakes match, and just such high quality Pokemon to be able to see. This is the kind of wonderful interaction that we see by specifically the move Trick Room. I think one of the moves that in and of itself is one of the like most difficult strategies to use was just spectacular to see. I think there were so many times where Matthew was needing to take not clear moves that advanced the progress in every situation, but that were like situationally exactly what he needed at a specific moment that then gave a ton of wonderful opportunities going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Just can't believe the quality of finals we got on both the juniors and the masters side. Just such high quality level of play from players that are just so much younger than the masters players we're used to seeing, but just showing that the level of practice and preparation and commitment to the game they have is on par with the masters, just being displayed through their immaculate gameplay. I believe that's going to be it for us on our end. Yeah, that's all I have, Hayden. Do you have anything else to talk about these amazing lower age division casts?
Yeah, I think the only thing to mention is just how honored I am that we got to see 2 incredible sets that went to 3 games. I could imagine either of these sets having happened on a Masters stream, and it was really exciting to see them show up in these younger age divisions. Pokemon has such a promising future with all of these wonderful players slowly aging up into higher age divisions, and I'm just really honored to have been able to cast this with you, Cedric.
Absolutely. A fantastic joy to be featured on the Victory Road cast with, of course, the 2013 Senior Division champion. No more appropriate matches than the lower divisions, junior and seniors. Yeah, that's going to be it for us. I hope you guys enjoyed our cast for the Latin American International Championships. We're going to be moving into the Masters Division cast with Matt and Ben on the caster's desk. We're going to be featuring Juan Salerno versus Yuma Kinagawa. Just an incredible pair of players. Latin America trying to defend its title with Juan, and then Kinagawa trying to claim his first international title after becoming the Japan national champion last year. High stakes, incredible trainers. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Possibly the shortest break we've ever had between 2 sets of casters here. Ben Kiriakou and Matt Maynard ready to take you through the finals of the Latin America International Championship. And we have got a fantastic finals at that.
We have got Yuma Kinagawa up against Juan Salerno. We have got Yuma representing Japan. Japan has never won an international level event, and neither has the Latin American region. Latin America coming close a couple of times, with Gabriel Agati having 2 runner-up positions in international championships. Juan Salerno, the hometown hero from Latin America in the Latin American International Championships, looking to change that on his home turf. He will be the crowd favorite for this match.
And not using anything that really is pushing the boat out at all, just going with the tried and tested sort of compositions that he's been running all season. This is very similar to what he used in the Gdansk Regional Championships, where he made it all the way undefeated up to top 4, and it was Team Masu who was able to overcome in the top 4 match that he's able to now make his way into the finals. Imagine traveling another halfway around the world and seeing the same person in top 4 that you just played a couple of weeks before. But it is going to be this Blood Moon Ursaluna, Incineroar Sneasler, Rillaboom, Dragonite Golden Go core that has been so prevalent in this series of Regulation Set H. Couple of little differences: the Terra Steel on the Dragonite, the Terra Water rather than the Terra Electric on the Blood Moon Ursaluna, Terra Grass on the Citrus Berry Ursaluna as well. So a few little tweaks here and there, but it's the same core, the same composition that we all know and love.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good for your very, very bold caster predictions of Incineroar, Dragonite, and Blood Moon Ursaluna.
Absolutely. This is why we make these predictions. It's all about the winning at the end of the day, and definitely not all about the taking part that counts. But yeah, looking at these two teams, looking at the matchup, we haven't had a chance to have a good look at Yuma's team, but you can see it down there on the right-hand side of the bottom of the screen. Whimsicott, Incineroar, Hisuian Typhlosion, Flamigo, Farigiraf, and Ursaluna. There it is, in all of its glory. And Matt, take us through this one.
So Yuma used a very similar composition actually last weekend at the Las Vegas Regionals. Very narrowly missed out on top 16. There was previously an Archaladon on this team, but that has been replaced by the Flamigo. I think probably the biggest outlier in this entire finals in terms of usage on Pokemon. We've seen a lot of Hisuian Typhlosion this weekend. We've seen quite a bit of Whimsicott. We've seen quite a bit of Farigiraf. But Flamigo, this is the only one I can think of that we've seen, and it's a very dangerous set with close combat and feint, combining very nicely with its scrappy ability, making it immune to Intimidate, being able to hit ghost types with normal and fighting type moves, is a very big threat into the Golden Go, Incineroar, and Ursaluna on Juan's team. So we might be seeing this Flamigo make an appearance in the finals of an international championships.
Well, it could be a winner yet. I mean, Flamigo has been one of those Pokemon that we saw so much at the start of Regulation Set H when, or previous Regulation Sets A, B, C, etc., when the format was so much younger, when the new Pokemon were so much less understood overall. And as we developed through various formats, Flamigo fell mostly out of favor. But I think Feint is the thing, alongside Wide Guard, where most sets have been running offensive with maybe a Tailwind option or trying to utilize Co-Star in the early days with Dondozo Tatsugiri. The Feint and Wide Guard as an option for this Flamigo really does change the dynamic of how it's operating in the team and what it is there to do. And I think that identification of needing all of those tools in such a condensed package, while being able to hit Pokemon like Archaladon, for example, with a Terra Fighting close combat, is really, really big. We're going to kick things off here. Incineroar, Blood Moon, Ursaluna, Dragonite, and another Ursaluna on Juan's side of the field.
Not the most exciting leads in terms of Pokemon. We were talking about the Flamigo and the Typhlosion. Instead, we've just got an Incineroar, a Dragonite, and two Ursaluna Blood Moons. But two very different Ursaluna Blood Moons. Yuma Kinagawa rocking the Life Orb on his Ursaluna, threatening very, very big damage right off the bat. We've seen a number of times interactions between Ursalunas this weekend where the faster bear has just got off a Blood Moon, and that's been a decisive factor. So this speed order can be very important here.
Dragonite switching out for the Rillaboom here and just getting the terrain set up, getting that healing going, just in case Juan's Blood Moon Ursaluna takes a Blood Moon for its troubles, but also the switch out for Yuma here, switching out that fake out Pokemon in favor of Whimsicott while just protecting the Ursaluna. So maybe hoping to catch a protect on the Ursaluna. There it is, failing on Juan's side of the field because nothing offensive happened on Yuma's.
Both players looking to preserve their Ursalunas, maybe identifying them as key pieces in this matchup, but now we see this board position that is so dangerous. The Ursaluna Blood Moon next to Whimsicott, able to set up that Prankster Tailwind, making Ursaluna much faster than it would normally be, doubling its speed. But this Whimsicott, unlike a lot of Whimsicotts we see, is not holding the Covert Cloak item, so it is vulnerable to a fake out from Rillaboom potentially, but no, it's not, because it's not on the field anymore.
Yeah, no, it's getting on out of there, and Whimsicott not wanting to take that fake out at all. Nor does Yuma want their own Blood Moon to take a fake out from the Rillaboom that just switched in on Juan's side, bringing in the Farigiraf with its Armor Tail ability to put a stopper on any sort of fake out shenanigans. And now it depends on whether or not the Sneasler coming in for Juan is going to be taking a big Blood Moon to the face. That is the risk in this situation, especially when you're facing down a Terra Normal Ursaluna carrying the Life Orb. That is no small amount of damage that Yuma is getting going here. The Armor Tail working against the fake out. Here is the big Blood Moon charging itself down into the Sneasler on the switch in. That is a big one-hit KO. A knowing nod here from Juan that Yuma has just gotten the upper hand, maybe a little bit in this battle, knocking out the only fighting type Pokemon that Juan has available to them.
As you mentioned, being the only fighting type now gone on Juan Salerno's side does make this Ursaluna Blood Moon a little bit more scary. And I really like the bait there from Yuma, sending out the Whimsicott, threatening the Tailwind and saying, okay, well, you really want to fake this Whimsicott out because otherwise you're going to be in a very tough position next turn. And then immediately just bring in that Farigiraf. He does reveal his last Pokemon, and that slot is just disappearing again. This Ursaluna Blood Moon, clearly no one on the team particularly friendly with him. Everyone just leaving as soon as they see that he's here. That slot not staying in at all. We see the Incineroar coming back in for Yuma.
And the Protect on the Ursaluna, so the typical pivoting play. Now it's down to Juan to see that they can punish them. Yuma has got the early lead in this game, but Juan is a player that has got a lot of experience in this game, but Yuma just seeing through these strategies that Juan is trying to go for and calling the turns right every single time in the row.
Yuma really feels like he's gotten the best of these early turns, getting a KO on the Sneasler, which is a big threat for his team. He's now got board position with Fake Out, and unlike Yuma, Juan does not have the option to block that with his own Farigiraf. So something on his team is likely to be taking a Fake Out and maybe another Blood Moon this turn. We are going to see the Fake Out coming out into this Rillaboom to start the turn off.
Now, the advantage of the Blood Moon Ursaluna on Juan's side is that it's probably trained that little bit bulky to be able to take these attacks, but this Assault Vest Rillaboom going down to the Blood Moon after a little bit of Fake Out chip. If that Rillaboom was trained to be able to survive that big damage, the Fake Out would have taken it over the line. Now Blood Moon going into Ursaluna on Yuma's side. There's so many Blood Moons using Blood Moons all over the place. It's getting hard to keep track of, but what's important is that the Blood Moon on Yuma's side of the field is now very close to getting KO'd.
Well, the Blood Moon Ursaluna on Yuma's side very close to going down, but there are still 3 Pokemon left in the back, and most notably, we know that one of those Pokemon is that Whimsicott. Dragonite on Juan's side only has access to Scale Shot as an attacking move, so there's so much riding on whether or not Juan can make the most of his Blood Moon Ursaluna here, and Yuma yet again taking defensive measures with his own Blood Moon Ursaluna, not risking that big damage, keeping it safe from any incoming attacks.
And Earth Power being the only move that this Blood Moon Ursaluna can lock into on Juan's side of the field after it's used its Blood Moon. You can't use that move 2 times in a row, so it's a completely safe switch in there for the Whimsicott. Of course, this does change up not only the terrain with the grassy terrain running out, but the speed orders with that Whimsicott being able to set up the Tailwind.
Trick Room is a move that Whimsicott learns, not on this team though, that's Farigiraf's job.
Not this time round.
Is probably going to be setting up a Tailwind this time, and even if one had gone for a Tailwind there, maybe calling the Whimsicott switch in, Whimsicott's prank durability means that Tailwind is always going to go up before it gets KO'd by maybe a Blood Moon. If there had been a Tailwind going up from Juan last turn, maybe his Dragonite would have been able to outspeed Yuma's Ursaluna and taken a KO there, but instead the speed advantage goes back in Yuma's favor. He's got up 4 Pokemon to 2. It's going to be a Tailwind advantage here, and this Ursaluna is going to have a chance to make a big attack here. Is he going to call a slot correctly? What does he go for? It is another Blood Moon. Where's it going to target?
Down into this Blood Moon Ursaluna for a big KO there. Wow. It's not often that you see a Blood Moon Ursaluna getting knocked out in one, but there is the power of the Terra Normal, there is the power of the Life Orb that this Blood Moon on Yuma's side of the field has been able to utilize to catapult Yuma all the way into the finals. Now, the Blood Moon Ursaluna on his side, it's done so much work, but it finally does get felled by this Dragonite. But now this Dragonite only has access to Dragon-type attacks. It's not going to be able to do any more damage to the Whimsicott. The Whimsicott has the Moonblast, so we're all but wrapping up this Game 1 in our LAIC Masters Finals.
Yeah, that is going to be Game 1 for Yuma. We see Juan locking in the forfeit. Never mind. Juan may be taking a little bit of time just to consider what he's going to do about this Blood Moon Ursaluna in Game 2, because it just dealt so much damage. It was 3 KOs this Blood Moon Ursa got, all of them in one hit. 3 Blood Moons with that Terra Normal, able to take a KO each time that Yuma fired one off. Yuma getting his targeting correct every time as well. So crucial in that matchup. Blood Moon, a move you can only use once every other turn. You cannot use it 2 turns consecutively. So it's so important to get your targeting right. And Yuma correctly calling out when his opponent was and was not going to be protecting.
There's a really nice bit of information gathering as well for Juan there. With the Babiri Berry, you don't necessarily know exactly how that Whimsicott is going to be trained. It's a non-common item. That means that you can't infer too much about the set overall, other than kind of some understanding of what it's trying to do with the Tailwind and the Sunny Days, the Encores and the Moonblast that it has access to. But I think Juan was just taking that little bit of time to see how much damage the Moonblast did to the Dragonite in order to infer just what kind of a set this Whimsicott was. And even if it may not be a big factor in this match overall, I really like the time that Juan has taken to try and get as much information as possible.
That's a very good point. Yuma is almost certainly going to have a better idea of how Juan's Dragonite is trained and vice versa. So, as you mentioned, I do like Juan's decision to maybe just scout out to see how offensively this Whimsicott is trained. We are going into game 2 now, and it's the same leads from both sides, but we've got information from game 1. Most notably that Yuma's Ursaluna Blood Moon is faster than Juan's, and it can take a hit from that big Blood Moon from Juan's leftovers Ursaluna, but the same is not necessarily true the other way around when Yuma's Ursaluna is powered up by that Life Orb.
That's a big deal in this matchup as well, isn't it? Because now the tables have turned slightly in the information game. The likelihood that Yuma is just going to switch the Pokemon next to Ursaluna over and over again is pretty low. But the question is can Juan actually take advantage of that? Try and get some of these early turns right. Try and carve out a little bit more of an early game lead in this scenario.
Yeah, we are going to see an immediate switch. A Golden Go coming in, a change up from Juan's plan in game 1. We didn't see that Golden Go before, but it's a powerful special attacker with that Life Orb. Ursaluna Blood Moon, famously not the strongest Pokemon on the special defense side, so maybe these big Make It Rains can start to rain down some damage on this Ursaluna, but it will be Ursaluna's turn to rain down some damage first.
Fake out onto the Dragonite here. Terra Normal Blood Moon coming out as well, but it looks like Juan has actually caught that this time. Well, you're switching to a Pokemon that resists it, but wow, that is really a lot of damage onto the Life Orb Golden Go there. Still not KO'd. That's really critical in this spot. If the Golden Go had gone down that turn, I think Juan would have been in maybe all sorts of trouble here. But the fact that it held on, the fact that it can actually start firing back now, put some pressure on this Blood Moon Ursaluna is a big deal.
As you say, there is pressure on that Blood Moon Ursaluna now. It was so valuable in game 1, Yuma deciding to keep it as safe as possible. And here we see the Babiri Berry Whimsicott coming into play as the Make It Rain comes out from Golden Go. Whimsicott going to be able to survive that thanks to its damage being halved. And now Whimsicott is completely safe from anything that this Dragonite might want to be able to do. Incineroar doesn't really mind taking a -1 scale shot, but it does go into the Whimsicott for the second time in this set. Whimsicott has come in on that scale shot. Incineroar deciding it doesn't want to take a KO this turn. Instead, the parting shot, lowering Dragonite's special attack and attack once again, repositioning for, I would imagine, this is going to be that Blood Moon Ursaluna coming in again, now with the speed control on its side, and this is a big threat for Juan Salerno. Yuma with a real positional advantage now.
Especially since the Whimsicott going for the Tailwind allows this Blood Moon to go on the offensive with Hyper Voice, not necessarily a Blood Moon, preserve that big attacking damage. If Juan makes any switches into that attack, then they're going to take some big damage, put themselves in either another Hyper Voice range or certainly range of another Blood Moon from this Ursaluna. And so you've got this real trouble if you're Juan, is like, you've taken a lot of damage in the early game. How do you even reposition under all of this offensive pressure that Yuma's putting on?
That's the thing, it is the offensive pressure that is such a threat here. Juan responding to that with a Terra Steel here, wanting to halve the damage from a potential Hyper Voice or Blood Moon from this Blood Moon Ursaluna, so that he might, I would imagine, be able to try and get his own Tailwind up this turn. Can Yuma get a hard read on this? We do see, I believe, a Hyper Voice coming out. And it is, yeah, Dragonite's still going to be taking half damage from this. But as we saw on that Golden Go the first time round, a resisted hit is still a lot of damage from this Ursaluna.
It certainly is. And now it's down to Juan as to what move he's locked locked into. It is the Tailwind that actually makes a big difference in this match, because now the Golden Go, immune to the encores of Whimsicott because of its gold ability, will be able to fire off another Make It Rain. The question is the Encore going down into the Dragonite to lock it into that inoffensive Tailwind that it's just used?
The other option is there is just a Moonblast threatening this Golden Go from Whimsicott. Whimsicott probably faster than Golden Go here. Golden Go obviously resists it, but it's only on 10 HP. A Whimsicott Moonblast would probably be enough to KO it from this range. But Yuma again instead choosing to withdraw that Ursaluna and get some positioning with the Incineroar.
Okay, so the Intimidate goes down but doesn't do anything. It is the Golden Go that's faster than the Whimsicott. The Whimsicott did not go for Encore, most notably probably going for a Moonblast there, trying to maybe catch Juan on a switch in, but Juan holding his ground. Now that Dragonite is at 3 stages of decreased attack at the moment, so it's not going to be doing too much damage as the Golden Go goes down to its own Life Orb recoil, but there's the Haze to bring it back down to neutral. No Whimsicott to suppress it, no Whimsicott to Encore it anymore. Now Juan looking like he has the advantage.
Yuma would have probably known that turn that his Whimsicott's not likely to be faster than this Golden Go, given that obviously he knows how it's trained. Juan maybe just taking a gamble on those speed interactions. I don't think we've seen them yet this set, but it's very interesting to see that Whimsicott being slower than Golden Go, and that could make a huge difference. Because Golden Go just being able to get that Make It Rain down, KO the Whimsicott, remove the threat of Tailwind for the rest of the game, and also get some very relevant damage down here on the Incineroar. Could be nice, but we do now see the Flamigo that we were hoping for coming in. Intimidate from this Incineroar, not doing anything to this scrappy bird.
Wow. And this is the downside, isn't it, of going for a Terra Steel on Juan's side, is that now everything is weak to fighting. You've got the Terra Steel on the Dragonite, you've got the Ursaluna Blood Moon that's a normal type, and the Dark type Incineroar. You can't intimidate this Flamigo because it has the scrappy ability that blocks the attack drops, and so just close combats look really strong in this position into everything that Juan has left over.
Yeah, and even if the Golden Go were still alive here, as strange as it sounds, the fighting type attacks from Flamigo would have been super effective into that as well. We did identify at the start of this set that Flamigo could potentially be threatening. It didn't come to game 1. And again, Yuma, I think, just playing to bait Juan into a position where he's weak to something that he doesn't know is coming. In game 1, it was the Frigoraph. In game 2, the Frigoraph being left behind. Juan's still going to be scared of Fake Out for this whole set, but now it's the Flamigo that is threatening all of those close combats. But it looks like that was a double down into the Dragonite that turn.
As the Ursaluna gets itself switched in, I was wondering, because there is Feint on that Flamigo as well. A Feint plus a Flare Blitz would have been able to knock out that Dragonite, and this is one of those Incineroars that does indeed still have access to a Flare Blitz. That could have been absolutely critical, but Juan has to make that read, that call, over and over again in this match until that last turn of Tailwind that he has, where Juan's Tailwind went up one turn after Yuma's, and so there will be one turn where Juan has the speed advantage, but there's the first close combat coming into the Dragonite, picking up that KO with the Flamigo.
I believe the Tailwinds actually went up at the same time, so the Tailwind should be expiring on both ends at the end of this turn. Flamigo deciding that Dragonite is the biggest threat on that field because, as you said, it does have that Tailwind threat. Yuma does not want to lose speed control, and also Dragonite's the only thing that can KO that Flamigo through its Focus Sash thanks to Scale Shot. Now, we see the Focus Sash staying intact on this Flamigo as Ursaluna instead targets down the Incineroar, and now it is a 2v2 endgame, but there's no speed control for either player. And we've seen that this Blood Moon Ursaluna on Yuma's side is the faster of the two. Flamigo is definitely going to be faster than this Incineroar and is threatening it with a big close combat. It might just be 2 attacks and 2 KOs from Yuma standing between him and this Latin American International Championship title.
I mean, there is a Fake Out. I mean, there is still something on the board that Juan has available to him, but a quick double protect from Yuma's side would be able to mitigate that, and then it's starting to go on the offensive as well. Yuma has a slight advantage in that on the off turns of Blood Moon, you can go for Hyper Voice instead. There's a Detect coming out on the Flamigo, and the Protect coming out on the Blood Moon Ursaluna. Juan knows that his opponent is well enough versed in the video game to not miss that fake out coming out from this Incineroar. And it looks like we are 1, maybe 2 turns away from crowning our LAIC champion.
Yeah, this feels like a pretty simple close combat into the Incineroar and Blood Moon to the Ursaluna, or Hyper Voice if you're worried that this Incineroar is going to be able to take that close combat. But Flamigo, not the strongest Pokemon, but close combat is a very, very strong attack. With that same type of attack bonus, super effective. We see the Protect coming out from Ursaluna, maybe hoping the Incineroar survives, maybe hoping to catch a Blood Moon into that Protect, but Incineroar does go down to the close combat, and now it is a 2v1. Yuma surely has this wrapped up now.
Just all it will take is a close combat followed by a Hyper Voice. Juan there clapping, Yuma having a small amount of celebration. There is only one more turn. Juan playing the best that he's ever played in an international tournament, making it all the way to the finals. There's the close combat. The Flamigo can't make it quite all the way on its own, but there is a trusty Blood Moon.
It's a speed tie! It's a speed tie the whole time!
The Blood Moon coming back. We were raring up for a win there straight away on this turn, but it's not this turn. There is still a close combat ready to go. And Juan seeing that maybe there was a chance, maybe that it was a speed tie going down between these two Pokemon, but with the Focus Sash intact, Yuma is still only one close combat away.
No way. That's not information that you want to find out on the very last turn of the match. Maybe that could have changed how Juan played. He's going for this Protect, opening up the chance for a Blood Moon next turn, but Yuma would have to not click close combat for 4 turns in a row here, I think.
Look. Juan has made it to the international stage for his second time. He's enjoying his time up there. Let's pay Juan his dues. He's been such a fantastic competitor. But with the final close combat, it is Yuma Kinagawa that is going to be crowning the title of Latin America International Champion.
What an absolutely fantastic set from Yuma. The thing I enjoyed most, I think, that he was doing there is, as I said, baiting certain options out from Juan in game 1, showing the Whimsicott. And you'd think your opponent's not going to bring all 3 supportive options in Incineroar and Farigiraf and Whimsicott. So maybe making Juan think there's not going to be Farigiraf in the back, and then catching that Fake Out. And again in game 2, dissuading the use of Fake Out, and then bringing in that Flamigo that wasn't there in game 1. And just like that Blood Moon Ursaluna did in the first game, Flamigo was the one that took 2 KOs and did most of the damage on Ursaluna. Yuma doing such a good job of identifying which Pokemon were going to be crucial in both games and leveraging those Pokemon so well, using one Pokemon to the utmost advantage in both games.
And let's be clear here. Yeah, Juan Solero has been playing Blood Moon Ursalunas all format, all tournament. He knows how to play around them, but it is just those calls that you make on the moment. And I think especially the fact that the Life Orb variants had fallen so far out of favor overall. You still see a couple of them peppered around, but it's not the Blood Moon Ursaluna that you necessarily prepare for, not necessarily with that shell around it. And I think that's the key. Yuma just had all of the tools available for suppressing everything that Juan was trying to go for, and knew that it doesn't matter what Juan is going for. The way through that game is Terra Normal Blood Moon and hit Juan with moves that they just cannot defend against. Find the time to swing, and then swing into the right place at the right time.
We've had our thoughts on this set, but it looks like we are going to try and jump over now and see if we can have a listen in on Yuma's thoughts on the set as we jump to the winner's interview.
Right before we get to the trophy ceremony, I had a chance to get a quick statement from Yuma. Congratulations. How are you feeling? Is there anyone you want to thank?
絹川さん、勝つおめでとうございます。今気持ちどうですか？
最高の気分です。
I finally won it.
Yeah, cycle. Short and sweet. He's feeling good, but now we're going to send him backstage so that we can head to our trophy ceremony. Let's go.
You absolutely love to see it. I mean, yeah, Yuma is one of my favorite people to players to watch from Japan. They're all such fantastic competitors, but they're all so excited about playing the game, win or lose. There's been so many great moments at our regional and international championships where the Japanese have come over to try and get those direct qualifications. They've managed it, and they're so happy to have been able to do so. Yuma going a little bit further than where he needed to, only needed to get to top 4 to get the direct invitation and to bypass the Japanese qualification system for getting into the World Championships. But hey, you know, if you're up in top 4, why not give it a go to go all the way? Why not try and win it?
I mean, yeah, you're basically there already. You might as well just win a couple.
Might as well.
What's the harm, you know?
But I got to give it up to Juan Salerno. He's a player that I've been following for quite a while. He's always one of the players that I really look out for in the Latin American regional and special championships, and especially seeing him play his run in Gdansk a couple of weeks ago has given me such a great appreciation for him as a player. He's so strong and so humble in the way that he approaches the game. He's really excited to just play the tournament, but a couple of weeks ago he looked untouchable. That streak has continued on to the Latin American International Championships, and you just love to see people on such a hot streak just carrying on doing so well.
Yeah, his last couple of seasons, he's been incredibly consistent, not just at getting good results, but getting excellent results. So he had a win at the, Rio de Janeiro regionals last season, top cuts in Joinville, Fortaleza, Santiago. This season, got finals at the Buenos Aires Special and top 4 at Gdansk just a few weeks ago. So he has been so consistently hitting those peaks, now with a second place at an international championships. That's his best result at an Internats, just about overtaking a top 4 he got a number of years ago. What an incredible, as you said, an incredible season from this player. Always a player to watch, always so consistently finding himself in the upper echelons of these brackets.
We've got to give a quick shout out while we're here to Magnus and Isaac, who gave us an absolutely fabulous juniors finals, going to 3 games, and it's just those small margins, just like in the Masters finals, that these juniors just keep doing so well. Isaac's brother, Ishmael, was a winner in various international championships last season before he aged up into the seniors division. I'm sure Isaac is very happy to be getting to that finals position as well and taking on the mantle that his brother left behind. But Magnus, a real champion here.
Yeah, we've had a couple of power families in VGC over the last few years. The ones that come to mind are Marco Silva and his younger brother Pietro have been incredibly consistent at the top of the Masters and Seniors bracket. So that's going to be very scary once Pietro ages up, and we may see a similar situation here. And now let's have a look at our Seniors top 8 bracket. Matthew Henry with a very clean run through the top 8, not dropping a single game in top 8 or semi-finals, only dropping one game in an exact mirror match against Charlie Kim in the finals, who also had a very strong run through the top 8 here.
Yeah, so it's not even quite an exact mirror match. The Pokemon are all the same, but there's some item choices that are just that little bit different between the two teams, and that makes all of the difference overall. Some Terra choices as well. It was such a close game between these two trainers, and actually this is another example of our seniors just showing us that they can age up. When they age up to being masters, they're going to be players that we really do have to keep a big eye on, because they are so skilled And they have the time. They have the time, not like us old people that maybe have to put the game down occasionally to go and maybe put food on the table. But these kids have the time to be able to dedicate to the game, and that makes them so dangerous.
Well, they really should be going to school, but outside of that.
That as well. But here's our Masters bracket. Lots of 2-0s here. Tier team. Apologies. Juan Solelo getting a 2-1 over Gabriel Agachi, and then getting a 2-0 over Tier team, who beat him in the Gdansk Regional Championships last time round. Yuma Kinagawa having such a great run up to the top cut, being the first Japanese player to win an international championships as well. I'm sure his community will be circling around him when he gets back home.
Yeah, it was a chance for both of these countries, Japan and Argentina, to win their first ever international level event. So a lot on the line for both players, but obviously the Latin American crowd will still be very, very proud of Juan Salerno for the performance he put up this weekend. And we saw that the remainder of the top 8, also incredible performances. Any top cut record at an international championships is incredibly impressive. We saw just the caliber of play we had across the entirety of this weekend with, I think we said it on day one, and we'll say it again now, most of the sets that we featured probably could have realistically been the finals, but some of those people didn't even make it to phase 2 of this tournament. It's been such a tough competition, and it's impressive to see who has come out on top ahead of all of their cohort.
Who's taken home a couple of quid worth of prize money there. Yuma taking home $15,000 for their win. Juan Salerno taking home 10,000 as well. Of course, that prize money goes all the way down to top 32. Our juniors and seniors will be taking a nice pot of cash home as well as the swag that comes along with getting these top placements at international championships. In the championship points, that positions 5 through 32 and even further down will be taking home as well with them. Gets them well on their way to the World Championships and the journey that we have to the end of our season.
And of course, our top 4 places in these tournaments will get an automatic invite to the World Championships. So that's some people who have qualified already. The championship points, nice, but no longer completely necessary. On top of this prize money, we now have another batch of people already guaranteeing their spot in San Francisco next August.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great tournament, and this is the thing that I love about starting to fill up these direct invitations, because you know that there's a certain set of players that have already qualified for the World Championships, and just as the season goes on, it just makes you more and more excited. It's like, hey, we're gonna get to see that player. Now we're gonna get to see Yuma Kinagawa playing at the World Championships. And yeah, I just think back to the World Championships last year, where I think it was in round 3 or 4 of the Swiss that Yuma played up against Matty Morgan, and there was that infamous sucker punch mind game that the two of them were playing, and on turn 7 of this sucker punch mind game, the call was made and Yuma got it right in game 3, I think it was, or the final game, the deciding game of the set. Either way, it could have gone either way, but Yuma made the call, and it's just something that I just love seeing the spots fill up. But let's get over to the stage where we have our award ceremony kicking off.
Beautiful weekend, but now we do have to give credit where credit is due, moving into our amazing video game finalists for LAIC. Starting off with our video game junior finalist, Isaac Ogi. And a round of applause and congratulations to our video game junior champion, Magnus Andreasen. Moving on to the senior division. Go absolutely bananas for our video game senior finalist, Charlie Kim. Now let's hear it for our senior champion, Matthew Henry! And now it's time for the Masters division. Let them hear you across the globe. It's your Video Game Masters finalist, Juan Salerno! And a huge round of applause for your Video Game Masters champion, Yuma Kinogawa! All right, trainers, lift those trophies high. Let them see it and drink in this moment. You earned it. One more round for them, folks. Let's hear it. These are your 2026 Pokémon Latin America International finalists. And thank you, of course, once more, trainers, for putting on such exciting battles for us this weekend. It has been a pleasure, and now we can let you head backstage so you can continue your own celebrations. All right, you're free to go.
And that is gonna wrap up an incredible weekend of Pokemon at the Latin American International Championships. Congratulations to Magnus, Matthew, and Yuma, our VG champions this weekend. And congratulations, of course, to everyone who had those impressive finalist placements, top 8 placements. It's been an incredible weekend of Pokemon. I have thoroughly enjoyed every single set that we have had the privilege of watching. And I imagine you are probably feeling the same, Ben.
Very much. It's been a fantastic internationals, and the quality goes up every year for the level of play. Who's leveling up into our age division, and who is taking the next championship by storm, working out the next great team to bring along, or the way to play the same team that we've been using over and over again, just that little bit more consistently, that little bit better than everyone else. It's just been a fantastic weekend for all of that. And we got to say a big set of thank yous to all of the people that are involved in putting on this show as well. We are not the main broadcast, we are merely the side stream, but it has been such a fantastic set of matches, and it's so great to be able to immortalize all of these matches that we've been able to be casting over. So thank you to the VR team, thank you to TPCI and all of the broadcast team over there to help us put on this show as well, because it takes all of them to be able to send the signal over to us for us to do our things. Thank you to you, Matt, thank you to Hayden and Cedric as well, that have been so fantastic in bringing all of the action to all of you at home. And thank you to everybody watching as well. We thoroughly enjoyed our time. We hope you have had a great time as well as us. And yeah, Matt, any final words from yourself? I don't know if I've covered everything here.
I think you've covered everything pretty succinctly. Again, big thank you to the VR team. Thank you to all of the casters, both on the main broadcast and on this side stream. And again, thank you, Ben, for tolerating me for a whole weekend. I know it's not your favorite activity, but you've
it's been a good time. It's been a good time. I have put on a brave face. I've needed to at times, but you know, no, we've had a great time. We've had a great time. It's been an absolute pleasure behind the desk here, and thank you to Pablo as well, who has been here behind the scenes all the way through. We've managed to have a break behind the caster desk, but you know, our production team here have been staying strong all the way through, even though this is not necessarily a favourable time zone to them. So big shout out to them as well for being here for us all the way through.
think that just about wraps up all of the thank yous that I had in mind. So I think with that, that is going to be the end of our Latin American Regional Championships. It has been an absolute pleasure to bring all the action to all of you at home. And there's a little bit more Regulation H still left to play next weekend in Stuttgart Regionals. But you'll have to tune in next week to catch all that. That's going to be all from us. Thank you for watching, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.